Hello you guys, welcome back to the channel. Hi, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Erin and I like to talk all things makeup, movies, and books. If you're returning, thanks for clicking on another video. Today we're going to be hopping into all the books I read in January. This year I have a lot of goals and I'm super excited about reading, so I will talk to you guys all about the books I read, what I thought about them, giving an overall overview of what books I would recommend and which ones I would say book videos in general. Then this is the channel for you. I do book content here and there on my channel. Give this video a thumbs up by the end of it if you enjoyed it, and of course subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. So without further blabbering, let's hop into the video. So first off, I'll start off with saying that this was a really great month for reading for me. I ended up reading a lot this month. Majority of the books I read were on Kindle, so a majority of them were ebooks or digital books, and then I did read quite a few hard copies and also some audiobooks as well. And so I really just had a really good month reading, and I have to say that I read a lot. The thing is, though, I didn't have any 5-star reads this month. It's just the beginning of the year, but I will say that there were quite a few books that I did enjoy. It's just I didn't have any like a 5-star or what I write on my rating system here on my channel. I do by grades because it's a play off me being a teacher, so no A+ books this particular month, but I did have quite a few B's, B-, a couple C's, and a few D's as well, or 1 D. So, with that being said, this month I read a total of 16 books. It is January 29th. I am currently reading a few books. I'm reading one book on Libby, which is the public library's audio system and digital system. I'm listening to an audiobook on there by Riley Sager. I'm also reading one of my book of the month book I got in January, which is called Black Cake by Charlemagne Wilkerson. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyways, and I'm also reading a book on Kindle, so I'm currently reading 3 books. That might sound insane, but I'm currently reading 3 books. I'm also reading one on my Kindle app called Charlotte. So, yes. Anyways, let me go ahead and get into how many, I said already, I've read 16 books this month, and I don't think I'm going to finish any of the books I'm currently reading right now by the end of the month, so I'm going to say 16 books solidly that I finished. So, let's go ahead and hop into what I read this month. My TBR video that I did for January, I was expecting to read The Girl in Red by Christina Henry, The Magicians by Lev Grossman, All Systems Red by Martha Wells, The Stepdaughter by Carol Ellis, and The Song of Susanna. And actually, this is the one time I actually decided to give myself a more doable TBR, one that didn't have like 15-20 books on it, which wouldn't have been too far off for this month in particular. But you guys will see that I actually got through all the books on my TBR, and we'll get into that. So the first, and I have my reading journal here that I've been using for this 2022. I just started this reading journal. This is my first time using a reading journal like this, or doing a reading journal, period. I used to do like reading logs when I was younger and stuff like that, but this is my first time doing an actual reading journal, and I've been having so much fun with this and creating it, and oh, so much fun. Okay, but anyways, so I'm gonna go through all the books, and some of them I'll talk about in detail, some I won't. I wrote like very detailed ratings and all kind of different details on these books, but I don't want this video to be too long, and it's 16 books, so let's just pop through them. First one I read on ebook, or I'm sorry, on Kindle. It was an ebook. It was called From Darkness to Glory by J.R. Beery. I read a couple of her books at the end of 2021. I enjoyed them. She writes a lot of historical fiction, some of them being Mail Order Bride books, which I've been enjoying. I've always enjoyed them, period. It's a subgenre of romance that I kind of enjoy, but I recently have been picking back up with those as I've been reading in 2021, and I continued it for the first month of 2022. This one was published in 2014, and I ended up giving this one a C- or 2.5 stars. I started it the last day of the year on the 31st and finished it actually on the 1st. I was actually really sick on New Year's Eve because I ended up having COVID, and so yeah, I was just really sick, so I stayed in bed all New Year's Eve, all New Year's Day, just sick out of my mind, and so that was the perfect time to read. So I finished this book very quickly, and you will see as we go through this video, I've finished a lot of very shorter a lot of short books this month, so that's why I was able to get through so many. I gave it a 2.5 because overall I like the story, but I had some issues with the main character, the main male character in the story, and also some of the things that were happening. But basically, this is a story about this woman named Lynn McKinney who has to deal with a lot of hardships, working to support her family. She goes through a lot of different traumas and things, as well as just kind of having to decide to be like a kept woman of this kind of really gross man, and dealing with the fact that her mother is dealing with a lot of things as well. She also has to take care of her she also has to take care of her, is this one? She has to support her family as well. So she has like several younger siblings, I think 2 brothers and a younger sister. So she makes the decision to become an elder bride. She travels to marry this man, Philip, but he ends up being a gunslinger, and so she doesn't know what necessarily that she's walking into this, but she ends up marrying this man and they end up falling in love. But the husband is basically like a cold-blooded killer. And so it was just like some of the stuff in the book I just did not enjoy, especially with the main male protagonist. He was very quick to be like just shooting people, and some of them were threatening him or his family, but some of the stuff just wasn't working for me, as well as some of the description of the native peoples in this book I didn't love, and the ending was just like okay, like it was alright. I liked the reunion with the girl and her siblings. But the second book I read was The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. I had a goal this year to read from more authors that I read for the first time in 2021, and Christina Henry was one of those authors, so this was very quickly me getting into that goal, and I picked up The Girl in Red from the library. I just saw it on the shelf, and I was like, oh, yep, I wanted to read more from this author because I really loved her book, Near the Bone, which I read in December 2021, obviously. And so I picked this one up because I like the description, and it's supposed to be like a Little Red Riding sort of retelling, as well as it has some like dystopian vibes to it, and it also kind of matched a lot with what's going on right now because the book is about this virus that gets out and it starts killing people. But this one, if I go into a quick synopsis, is following Red, a young woman trying to survive in a pandemic and trying to get to her grandmother's house, which is the Little Red Riding reference. And so Red is traveling to her grandma's house after this pandemic has came and is killing off everyone, and she experiences all types of dangers and death and loss and sadness as she journeys to her grandmother's house. Overall, I did really enjoy this one. I was able to connect to this, obviously this being a story about a pandemic, considering the fact that we've been going through this pandemic for, you know, the past, what, 2-3 years now? I can't even, yeah, 2020, no, 2020, 2021, 2 years. But I did knock this one off as far as my rating because I found the main character to be just a tad bit annoying, and that's just my personal opinion. You may love this book. Let me know your thoughts on it down below if you've read it. But I found Red to be a tad annoying. I admire her courage and her perseverance that she had throughout the book, and she was very much like a character that was kind of smart, but I also felt her to be a little bit like self-righteous in some sense as well. And yeah, I don't know. I think also some of the horror elements were not fleshed out enough for me personally. But yeah, so I gave this one a B minus, so 3.5 stars, which is not a bad rating. It's a pretty good rating. And I finished this one on the 4th of January. I don't know why I said the 1st. And I actually read this one as a paperback. Yes, let's move on. Book number 3. Next I read All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Again, another book that I had on my TBR. I was flying through these books. This one is set in the future. It's a planetary where there's planetary missions that have to be given the green light by this company, and teams must have a company security android along for the trip. And that gives us our main character that we're following, Murderbot, a security android who has become aware. He has hacked the system, and now he's self-aware, and he refers to himself as Murderbot, and he's supposed to be like this kind of like killing machine, but in reality he just wants to watch dramas all day and figure himself out, which I can totally relate to. I want to sit and watch dramas all day. Like, if I could just sit in my bed and watch dramas all day, I would. But so definitely relate to him on that sense. But also he's been, you know, not forced, but he's been put into this situation. He's been, you know, he's basically used as a tool, and he's working with this group of people on this mission, and they find that there's something that's happening on this planet that they're on, and he ends up having to protect these humans. Enjoyable. I gave it a B minus, but I gave it a 3.75, so close to a 4. I found this one short because it's very much a novella size, but very much fun. I enjoyed the characters. I found that there was a nice build-up in the story, and overall I was enjoying it, but I couldn't fully invest myself in it. I don't know why. I feel like this one was also super hyped up, and I don't know if it was up to the amount of hype that I've seen of it. Maybe a bit overhyped. Again, this is just my opinion, but I did love the ending. I found the ending to be very fitting, and I really enjoyed the ending, actually. So I don't know if I'll continue with this, because I know this is a series. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't anything like, you know, mind-blowing to me. And I did read this one physically. So I think this is, yeah, that's my first sci-fi of, no, I guess The Girl in Red would be a sci-fi too. So 2 sci-fis already, and it's January. Next book I read was The Miracle of Love, and this is another Mail Order Bride book by Montana Ross. I gave this one a 4 stars or a B+. This is an ebook I read who keeps getting rejected by potential suitors because she is barren, so she takes matters into her own hands and becomes a mail order bride, and she ends up going to marry this man in Colorado named Garrett, who is still grieving his wife's death, but needs someone to help him because he has an 8-month-old daughter, so he looks for a marriage of convenience. And this is this kind of story of 2 people that slowly fall in love, who don't necessarily think that they're going to necessarily receive love because of circumstances, but end up falling in love with each other. I really enjoyed the 2 characters in this story, which is why I gave it a 4 stars, even though the story itself is nothing original. In fact, for originality, I would rate it pretty low. I mean, a lot of Mail Order Bride stories have the same plot, but I really did enjoy the characters. I found it a sweet and inspirational story, and it definitely pulls on the heartstrings. So let's move on. Coming in January 7th, again, this is one I read in one day, another ebook, Mail Order Bride romance. It's The Bride's Brother. So this one is following a woman named Margaret who's running away from her abusive father, and she has her baby brother. Her mother just recently passed, and her father is abusive and drunk and just not a good place for her and her brother to be living. So she becomes a mail order bride, but she doesn't tell her potential husband that she has a baby brother that she is coming along with, and the man immediately believes that this is her son and not her brother. So this one was a very short read. This is when I started to get into some like really shorter books, like literally like 79 pages ebook. So literally took me like an hour to read this. You know, some people might say not count that as reading. I am, because it was a complete story, and like I said, it was I enjoyed it. I gave it a B-, and yeah, it was just like a nice sweet romance. That moves us into another one I read, which I also gave a B-, called Baby's First Noel. This one I also enjoyed. Again, a very short read. It's about Faye, and this one actually was a bit more serious. She's actually brutally assaulted and by her boss's son, and ends up pregnant from this horrible thing that is done to her. And her parents don't even sympathize with her. They basically tell her she's a loose woman and send her out to this home, and this home is also very abusive. So she ends up finding a way out by becoming traveling on a mail order bride wagon train, but she ends up finding out that she's pregnant, and so she's not necessarily eligible, or she doesn't know if someone will accept her. If she's pregnant, but she ends up meeting a very nice man, and they end up connecting, and there's like a slow build up romance for that. So it was a pretty solid story. I wouldn't say my favorite type of thing happening in this one, but it was enjoyable enough. And the next book I started on the 8th and finished on the 9th. Again, a very short read on Kindle, and it was ebook format, obviously. This one's called The Mail Order Mistake by Reynolds, and this one is following Charlotte, who's a servant who wants to come out of this life of servitude and find her own way. So she really wants to be married, so she advertises in this in the paper, in the matrimonial time section, to see if anyone will answer who's looking for a bride. And you know, with her picture and everything in the newspaper, someone does answer, but unfortunately the one who does answer is Martin, who has recently lost his wife and is heavily drinking and depressed about it. And the reason he answers her ad is because she looks similar to his dead wife. So we already have a misunderstanding here, as he writes her in a drunken stupor and she agrees to come, and now he is, you know, going to be stuck with a wife he didn't intend to have come to him. So she comes and figures out quickly that this man is someone who does not really want a wife and is also in a depressed state, a drunken state, and has a substance issue. But she's already here, she's already spent her money to come here, so she decides to stay in this town and work and see if there's any possibility for her and Martin to have a relationship. I enjoyed the premise of this one. I found it was a bit different from some of the other mail order stories, but yeah, I found it was a bit not fleshed out enough. Again, these are shorter stories that I'm getting into, but I just feel like this one was not given enough time for where I wanted the development for the characters to go. And although I like the gray characters in this one and I appreciate them going a different route with that, I just feel like there needed to be more story to really flesh out these particular characters. Then I went to something a little bit longer and a little bit more meaty with The Song of Susanna from Stephen King. This is the 6th book in the Dark Tower series from Stephen King, which it's my goal this year to finish this series. So I already read book 5 in November, and then I just finished book 6 January. So I finished this one on the 12th. I actually read this one on majority on audiobook, but I do also have a physical copy, so I had the physical copy as well. But I went ahead and put that I read the majority of this on audiobook, which is very much true. I listened to it mostly in the morning when I had some extra time at work. And this one is like a fantasy sci-fi. We're following the characters from the previous books. I can't give too much detail on this one because it would spoil if you haven't read this series, but we're following these group of gunslingers and they're going on another adventure. Time travel is involved, and this one gets a little bit meta as well, and so I really enjoyed this one, although I would say my enjoyment of number 6 was a bit less than book 5. I would say I really enjoyed returning with Roland and his quartet, which are this, like I said, group of gunslingers. I enjoyed the action in this one as well. We spent more time with Susanna in this one, who's the basically only main female character in the story, and also with her alter ego Mia, who has taken over her body. And there's a baby plot in this story which I wasn't super engaged in. Try not to say too much about this. And then yeah, so I wasn't super engaged in that subplot of this book, which was like basically the main plot of this book, actually not a subplot. But I did really enjoy the action with Roland and Eddie in the parts of the book. Those were like my favorite parts of the book, as well as the meta elements, like I was saying, in this book, as we start to get crossing over of many different worlds and universes. I loved how that was all integrated into this one. Just up like a B+ and 4 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars. Like I said, there were some things that I just didn't enjoy as much with this one compared to book 5. Whew, man, 16 books to review, that's a lot. Okay, the next one I read was The Rancher's Gutsy Bride, which I gave a 3.5. Again, another mail order bride romance. I like the concept of this one. South and Jewel, who after the war has little prospects, so she becomes a mail order bride. She goes off to Colorado, and she doesn't know if this is going to work at first, but she soon finds that she is very much adjusting to this life and a different style of life. And it's like 97 pages, and I enjoyed the slower build-up of the romance, but again, 3.5 for this one. Next, I read The Stepdaughter by Carol Ellis. This is definitely a very much nostalgic type of story, and it definitely reminded me of the Stepdaughter or the Stepfather movies. Same similar plot where the stepdaughter is suspicious of her stepfather and thinks that he was a killer in his you know, past relationship, and also noticed a news report that looks like this is her stepfather and he killed his wife and stepdaughter previously. So again, very very similar to the movie The Stepfather. And yeah, this one was very nostalgic. It definitely gave me like Fear Street vibes and just like point horror vibes, which is why I picked it up. and I gave it a 3.5 because although I really did enjoy it and had like some very much nostalgic moments. Oh, I actually have it here. Yes, here it is. Look at that. Really cool cover. Love it. I did feel like it's kind of a story we've seen over and over again. The stepdaughter that doesn't like her stepfather, or you know, somebody doesn't like their step parent, and the step parent is, you know, possibly evil. There was some different red herrings, but it was very clear that we knew who was going to be the actual killer at the end. Like, yeah. So they kept trying to pull us into different directions about, oh, it could be this person, or maybe she's just, you know, delusional. And I'm just like, okay. And so, anyways, yeah, very nostalgic, but not like the best story or plot. And really, honestly, probably shouldn't even be a 3.5, but the nostalgia factor is lifted it up there for me, so I gave it a B minus. Next, I read another book on Kindle. This one was called Savage Vow. I gave this one a D plus. It's basically like a dark romance book. A little girl is basically told by her father because of his debt, and she ends up being sold basically in marriage to this man who's like part of the Russian mafia, but she doesn't want to be in this marriage, so she runs away with her friend, and she ends up being chased by this guy. Overall, wasn't terrible read, and was, you know, pretty entertaining. But you know, the dark romance elements of it, some of them I found to be a little bit problematic, and yes, I just couldn't get past some of the stuff in this book. Overall, not the worst, but not the best. So yeah, that's why I gave it 2 stars. And then I read 2 more romance books, A Bride for a Loan and also A Thawing the Groom's Heart, both by Susan Calloway, and both very short books. One was 122 pages, and the other one was 96 pages. And so I gave both of them 3.75, and being that they were both historical fiction books, it was definitely right up my alley, historical fiction romance. So the first one is following A Bride for a Loan is following Brianna and Kevin, who are matched together by a mail order bride agency. They agree to marry, yet Kevin has a secret that he doesn't want to marry at all, and he actually is just marrying this woman to get a loan from the bank, and who only will give loans to married men. And so yeah, Brianna learns of this and she's devastated, but then another tragedy happens and they end up you know, having something else, another reason to stay together. So basically the question is can they get past this? My thoughts on this, it was a nice little love story. I like the tension that we got with the you know, husband being like marrying on misconception, although very seedy, not good, but overall enjoyable. And then the other one, Thawing the Groom's Heart, is following Sally as she's sick of her life in the upper class, and she's also trying to run away from this very seedy guy that wants to marry her only for her money. So she becomes a mail order bride, and she's soon in Idaho, married to an aloof man named Carl, who is very much like the cold, standoffish type of guy. So it's basically a question of, will she be able to make her aloof husband fall in love with her, or will they fall in love? So this one, I like the whole, again, these are similar concepts. It was overall enjoyable, and I like this one with the cold husband. So 3.75 or a B minus. No. Yes, B minus. Almost done, you guys. Next, I finished a a nonfiction book. This is my first nonfiction for the year. Title is Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men, and it was by Caroline Criado Perez. I said that so with no accent. I am a Spanish teacher. But anyways, this one was 411 pages, but I did read this on audiobook, so it took me about 5 days to get through this one. It was quite, and I read it at like 2 times speed, which is about how I read anyways. I read very quickly, and I feel like it's going to be good for me to do audiobooks for nonfiction, because I do have a bit of an issue with getting through some nonfiction if it's physical. Not all of them, obviously. It depends on the subject, but I really did enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. I think this book was very, very not entertaining, but it was very much enlightening as it is to the modern world. And this book looks at how much data fails to take gender into account, and how a lot of data is just not collected and based on gender, and how that is very detrimental to women. And so there's not a lot of sex disaggregated data. Did I say that correctly? I think I did. Basically, there's not enough data for some things that are designed in the world that take into account for women. So some of the interesting points I found from this one, I kind of rated this one a bit differently because it's nonfiction. So some of the points I found interesting were how things are built are not even, women are not thought in the process. The crash dummy part of the book was also very interesting. There's a part where they were talking about how most crash dummies are designed with male body proportions in mind, and there are female crash dummies, but they're not really representative of a woman's body, and there's like no breast in them, or different things that would actually be very much beneficial to know about for a crash dummy, and tests like that. And most seatbelts and things like that and car designs are not made for the safety of women. And even women in the political sphere touched on that, how they're not favored in political roles. It was just so much data and information, and it was very much, like I said, enlightening, very engaging, and definitely opened my eyes on some things. I did feel like there was so much information, though, that it was like, oh my goodness. And it was very, yeah, it was very, very enlightening, and I learned a lot of things about how the data is lacking, and it's very frustrating as well to see how much it's just not just in a way. It's informative but sad. Let's put it that way. So I wanted to read some more books like this year, and I did really enjoy that one. So yes. After that, I read another romance, Love's Greatest Gift by Montana Ross. Very, very short one. I gave this one 4 stars. I enjoyed this. Like I said, I enjoyed this type of romance, historical fiction, drama. I read this on Kindle, and the summary of this one is about Nora, who's an orphan, and she wants her own life, so she applies to be a mail order bride. She gets married to Jason, as they both agree they don't want kids, but something happens on her way to travel to him, where she ends up talking to this woman, and this woman actually ends up dying, and her baby, her newborn baby, or young baby, is left alone, orphaned, and they don't know who his family is or how to get him to his family. And so Nora takes on charge of this baby, Emily, and she soon becomes attached to this baby, but Jason does not want to have any children. And so I really enjoyed the different take on this one, with it being that these two people that don't want to have kids, perfectly fine if they agreed, and they both agree they don't want to, but there ends up being a situation where this woman becomes attached to this baby and becomes like this adoptive mother, and this was their agreement. They didn't want to have kids, and so now there's this dilemma. But I did enjoy the characters, and there's also some secrets in this one of why both of them don't want to have kids, and how they're going to struggle through that together and come to figure out their love for each other, and also the love for baby Emily. So yes, I enjoyed that one. Gave it 4 stars. And lastly, I read and finished The Magicians. This one I had on my TBR, so it was my last one on my TBR. It was the last book I've finished this month. I finished it maybe like 2 days ago. What is today? The 29th? Maybe about the 27th I finished it. I finished it on ebook, but I also do have the physical copy. So this is my own copy. So, The Magicians by Lev Grossman. This is a sci-fi fantasy adult book. Definitely would say like an urban fantasy type of book. And the reason I was interested in this one was, one, it was compared to like a Harry Potter for adults, and also it has some elements of Chronicles of Narnia in it. And also there's a TV show, she mentions here, that I wanted to check out as well, but I wanted to read the book first. And also my mom she watched the show and she was telling me about it, so it piqued my interest as well. But I had heard about this before she had even started watching the show, and I wanted to read this one because of the concept of this neither world, where there are all these different connections to different worlds, which is basically something that is from Chronicles of Narnia. So let's get into the plot for this one, or the summary. So this is a coming of man practicing magic, and who's trying to find himself, and we're following this man, or young man, Quentin Coldwater. He's a teen who's finishing up high school, and then he goes to a magical college. He finds out that there is magic in the world, basically, when he is accepted into this school, and he's looking for joy, he's looking for a purpose in his life, because he's basically very much kind of living in misery, or kind of just nothingness in his life, and he wants to escape that. And he also has a huge joy and love for these childhood books he used to read, which was about magical land, and these siblings that got to travel to this land, very a la Chronicles of Narnia, which is one of my favorite series of all time. And so he reads this book, and there's this magic land, and how these kids travel there. And so he's looking for something to kind of escape his mundane life, and he thinks that his magic is going to help him, but he soon finds out that nothing that is helping him. And then there's even more revelation as he finds out that this magical land that he's been reading about in these children's books is actually very much a real place. And so he meets all these different friends at the magical school, and they end up basically finding this magical land and traveling there. So why did I pick this up? Like I said, the Narnia comparison. Having this concept of traveling to different worlds has always really interested me. When I first read about it in The Magician's Nephew, years and years ago when I was a kid, I was like, that is cool. The endless possibility of traveling to different places and having different worlds like Charn or Narnia was just so fascinating to me. So the fact that they were going into it in an adult format, I was like, yes, pull me in. And so I was very much interested in this. I have to say, I overall really enjoyed this. I give it a 4.25 or B plus. Yes, B plus. And what I would say about this one is I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the aspects of it that had the magic. I enjoyed the parts that were traveling to different worlds. I liked the action in here as well. And I liked that there was some different influences. But I would say that this is its own thing. I don't say go into this expecting like the same vibes that you're getting from Harry Potter. Some like more tough subjects, including like depression and you know, just like teens and like not knowing your purpose, going through difficulties in life and trying to find yourself, and like coming of age, definitely type of story. So I wouldn't say this one is something that's super comparable to the Chronicles of Narnia or Harry Potter, except for the fact that it has a world that's similar to Narnia and characters similar to Narnia, as well as you know, magic school similar to Harry Potter. Excuse me. I also really enjoyed the action in this, like I said, and I really enjoyed the antagonist in this one. I thought it was very scary, and not like super scary, but like they're differently intimidating. The beast in this story and the battle with the beast was one of my favorite parts, when they got to Fillory, which is the magical land, and they have to battle this beast. I didn't give this one a 5-star in the end because I have to say some of the characters in this are just so unlikable. And I know they're supposed to be unlikable. That's like the whole point. And I definitely get people's point of this. They were dealing with a lot of things as well, which I definitely understand. But at some point, it comes to a point where some of the characters are just plain awful, quite frankly. Even our main character, I didn't connect to him too much. Which you don't have to connect to every character. I'm not saying that. But I just found him to be kind of not very likable as a character, and just kind of awful overall. Is that bad to say? I don't know. I don't know what the fandom is like. I feel like this book is kind of hit or miss for people. Didn't make it a 5-star read for me. I just didn't love the characters, which I feel like is a pretty huge part of your book. But yeah, I think I will continue the story. I am interested to see, especially how the ending of this book went, what happens in the second one. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that one there. Yeah, B plus for The Magicians. So, that's my whole reading month, you guys. I've read pretty much every day in January. I kept track of it on my reading journal, on my little thing here, and it's not even all the way updated, but I read pretty much almost every day. I ended up reading 16 books, and I still had to fill out the rest of my stats for this month, but I'm very excited for how I did for this month. I don't think it's going to be like this every month, for sure not, but yeah, I had a pretty good month. Yeah. Although I didn't have any 5-star reads, I'm hoping that'll change for February. So I'll be doing my February TBR very soon. Check out some more of my reading content. I will link it on the screen maybe, or down in the description box. So if you're interested in some more book content, check those out. And I will show you guys out in the next video very soon. Stay safe. Adios.